Hey guys, I've had some interest in people wanting to know how I make my yeast starters, so I'm going to go ahead and show you here. I've got a pot of water heating up on the stove here. It's just getting to boiling. It doesn't quite need to be to boiling. We don't need it that hot, about 160, 70 degrees. So then got about, I don't know, 3/4 cup of water in there, and then I just add some sugar to it. The reason we're heating it up is because you're going to put this in after your must has been boiled or whatever, and you want everything that touches it after that point to be sanitized. So you don't need a lot of sugar, maybe a tablespoon or so of sugar. You just want to introduce the yeast to the sugars and stuff, so you don't need a lot, and it'll get them started. So then I stir that up till I have like a simple syrup. It's not really a simple syrup either because it doesn't have as much sugar in it, but once that clears like that, we'll go ahead and shut the heat off, and we'll let that cool down. And once that cools down, we'll be back. Okay, and then depending on what you're going to make, if you're going to make beer or wine or whatever, you can actually use some of your must in there, or you can use some dry malt extract, you know, whatever you want. And it depends on the kind of yeast that you're going to use. For this batch, I'm going to use Lavalin EC1118. The reason being is because I'm using it for skeeter pea. I'm getting ready to make skeeter pea. It's real acidic, so you want a good strong yeast for that. And this is like a champagne yeast, so it's a good strong yeast. But if I was just doing like a regular fruit line or something like that, I'd use a Montrachet or a Premier Cuvée, one of those other. This is going to make it really dry, but this is the kind of yeast to use if you're doing a skeeter pea. Okay, so we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, the next step is you'll want to get a cup or a jar or whatever. I use mine on a stir plate. You don't have to use a stir plate. You can do this and just set it on your counter and rehydrate your yeast and get it going. I use a stir plate because it helps keep it going, but you want to also make sure that that's sanitized. So I go ahead and spray some sanitizer down in there. And then also, if you use a stir plate, you'll need a stir bar. You'll want that to be sanitized as well. So I went ahead and sanitized that, and then we'll just drop the stir bar down in here, and we'll get ready for our water. One other thing is when you're using your yeast, if you do keep it in the refrigerator, which is a good place to keep it if you're storing it for a while, you'll want to take it out of the fridge and get it to room temperature before you pitch it. Okay, so give it about a half hour or so once you get it out of the fridge before you pitch it into your starter. Also, just another tip for you, if you look on the back of the package, it tells you the ideal pitching temperature, which is between 104 and 109. So that's just a tip for you. You can make sure your water is down to that temperature before you pitch your yeast. Okay, so our water is down to temperature. So we're going to go ahead and pour it into our beaker here. You really don't need that much liquid. I'm going to dump some of it back out. About like that is plenty. So we'll set it over here on our stir plate. Okay, next I'm just going to shoot the temperature just to make sure. We're at 106, which is right in the middle, pretty much of that temperature setting. So we're ready to pitch our yeast. Okay, so I've cut the top off with a pair of clean sanitized scissors, and we'll just dump it down in here. And then we'll turn the stir plate on. You could use a spoon to stir it in if you wanted. I like to just turn the stir plate on. As you can see, it's starting to spin there, and eventually it'll mix it all in. Mix it up real good, and then I'll turn it down so it's just barely spinning. About like that, looks good. And then I take a piece of tin foil and I spray it with some sanitizer. Just want to keep everything nice and clean, guys. And we'll cover that up. And now we'll just let it sit until we're ready to pitch our yeast on our skeeter pea, which I'm getting ready to make. So this is actually going to sit and cultivate for 24 hours before I pitch it. So there's how you make a yeast starter, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. Post a message down below, or you can also email me or whatever. Okay, cheers, guys. Remember, there's always time for a glass of wine.